Hi there, everybody. It's Paula with Dip Into Art. I'm super excited to let you know I'm going to guide you through a free painting tutorial of another one of my water kit designs for my curated Let's Get Beachy watercolor set. I will be going over the supplies that you'll receive and all of those things. And I'll let you know that these are beginner supplies, but you can paint a really cute design with very basic supplies. I will be using all of the supplies that you'll receive in your art kit. So we're going to get started here and I'll let you know which design that we are painting. We are going to paint the family of sea turtles in watercolor. And I encourage you, if you follow along or if you do this at another time, get creative, do your own thing with these designs. They're super cute and super fun, super easy. So I'm going to get you over to my work desk and we'll go over the supplies and get started. Okay, so I've already used this paint set for the sea turtle, but this is what you'll receive. So these are the 12 watercolor paints, beginner set, very pigmented, bright colors. You'll receive a design like this. This is watercolor paper, and all of the designs are pre-printed on watercolor paper so that you can dive right in right away and get started on these. You'll need a cup of clean water and a paper towel, and that's it. So have your supplies comfortably set up where you'll be painting, and you can get started right away. Got my design, my paints, my water, and my paper towel. So the first step, of course, is getting out actually, I'm going to show you really quick. Just thought of this. I have two sheets of paper here. So this is a very dark lined piece that of the design on this piece of watercolor paper. I wanted this out so that you can see what it looks like. On this one, you can't really see the lines in this camera so well, but they are there. And your art kits may receive some lighter designs like this so that you can paint over them and you won't see the lines so much. It's either or. These ones I do like as well because it makes it look like an ink and wash watercolor. So I think that I will be using this one today. No, I'll use this one because, sorry, you guys will be getting the darker lines in your kit. So I'll save this one for another time. Okay. So we're going to go over to, let's see. Yeah, we're going to go ahead and get started here. So we've chosen our design and we're going to get started. So it's really kind of a few steps, 5 steps maybe, on creating this design. In watercolor, we typically go from light to dark. And what that means is we start with our lightest colors first, and then we move to our darker colors. I have a few tips and tricks on this one to show you how to add some white or foamy look to your waves. And everybody usually has one of these in their home, at least your kids do. Uh, yeah, a crayon, just a white Crayola crayon, or if you have wax, this is just clear wax crayon or even a piece of wax that's not colored. What you can do is lay down some of the wax onto your paper where you want your splashy waves to go. So let's say I'll use a white crayon because most people have white crayons, and I tend to go ahead and lay down this wax right over or above some of these lines, and the crayon acts as a wax resistant to the watercolor. So this could be your white foamy layer. Can't really see it, not even with a white crayon, you can't really see it. But I'm just going to go along the outer edge of where our waves are going to hit the sand, um, so that no color gets on there. And like I said, what that will do is add some nice little foamy features to your painting. So I'll add some more here, maybe up here, like there's some foam, and just be very loose with it. Get it. You're not going to be able to see it until you paint, but I'm just going to swirl it around in different areas. And you don't have to do this, but I think it's fun to see the effect of the wax resist on your paper. So I'm just kind of guessing where all this foam is going to be in this particular painting. Okay. And we can even do it on our See turtle outlines? Just lay down where you might want some highlights, where you don't want the, see all these little squiggly lines here? You can just lay down the wax and it'll leave some highlights for your turtle. Like the, even though these turtles are a little bit in a silhouette shadow design, they may have some shine on them. And I can't remember if I did that or not, but I'm going to do it again. And maybe a little foam here. And you'll see how this, you can even do it in your sand, right? So little spots in your sand, maybe where, and you'll see how it turns out once you lay the color down. So I'm just sort of scribbling some, basically wax on the paper. So a little tip there, a little crayon or a little wax. Even if you had a piece of wax, you just, as long as it's not colored wax, you can just lay it down and you'll get some cool textures. Okay, I almost forgot about that. So what we'll do first is we're going to start with our lightest colors. So I'm going to make a sand color. Oh, also another tip, if you have, if you could have a scratch piece of watercolor paper out so you can test your colors before you lay it down, that would be helpful. Always have scrap pieces laying around because sometimes you lay down a color and you're like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. But it's not the end of the world. For most of this painting, we'll be using wet on wet. And what that means is we're going to wet the paper down and drop color in. And typically what I try to do is get a big puddle of paint and trying to get enough to cover. We're going to do the sand first since that's the lightest part, enough to cover the sand area. And I know sand isn't yellow, but that's the base color I'm going to start with is this yellow. Okay. I'm going to give my brush a little rinse, and these pans are pretty dry. So what you can do if you have a squirt bottle, these paint cans here, just give them a little squirt. It'll save you a little time swirling your brush around. It activates the paint a little bit better. So we're going to get this brown color. Almost looks like a burnt sienna to me, or a Van Dyke brown. And we're going to mix the brown with the yellow. And right now it's a little too yellow for me, so I'm going to grab some more brown. I'm going to mix up a little bit of a darker shade as well. And that'll be for the shadow part behind the turtles. And then for the lighter shade, I'll show you what these look like when you lay down the color. Okay, so there's that one. And here's the darker shade. I might add a bit of red to get a more pinky sand color. That was a lot of red. If you do that, just go back into your yellow, make it a little orange. And a little bit more brown. So that ended up being a bit darker. Let's see. Oh, but I do like that color for the sand. So what I'll do is just, I like that color for the sand. So I'm going to clean my brush off a bit and start laying down some water on the paper, just very loosely. I'm leaving some white space as I go. The wax that we laid down will also create a white space. And I will do this probably smaller sections at a time since I'm using a small brush. That means is I'll go in probably just about half of it. And I'm working from left to right because I'm right-handed. I don't want my arm or hand to get into the paint. If I did it from this direction up, I could smoosh the paint around with my arm. So I'm going to do probably to right here because we're doing wet on wet and I don't want the paper to dry on me. So I'm going to drop, let's see what this looks like. It's a pretty color. And you'll see as you paint, sections that you have your crayon down will not get color. It will start looking sandy. Just picking up some of that pigment. I'm going to go around the turtle's body outlines. There you can see the wax resist there. I'm going to vary up some of this color a little bit. Add some of what was going to be my shadow color behind the turtle. Looks good. And then we'll do some more of this color right to where I ended my wet paper. And as I go, I like to drop droplets of color into the paint. Gives you another little sand effect. And that will spread out and blend because the paper is wet. So we're going to keep going around this turtle. And grab some more to start. Bring it down right around the turtle's backside where he's sort of trailing through the sand. He's walking, making his trek to the ocean. And in watercolor, your paints will dry lighter than what they look when you first put them on the paper. Sit down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag some more water. I'm going to go right, just tickle the line at the edge here that we stopped at, sort of blend it out, and start adding some more water. I can't remember if I did water here or not. Sometimes it's hard to tell. And as I go, I'll just drop some color in. And be very loose about it. And just have fun. And go behind this turtle with some of this. You start to run out of color. You can mix some more, which I think we'll start doing here in just a minute. And mix some more color. We started with yellow. Mix another puddle. Went into the brown, just scoop some of that up. Put it into the yellow. I might just go straight in here while it's still wet and add his shadow color with that dark value. And this is still a bit wet, so maybe we'll add a bit more shadow under here. Real loose here. Go around. Make some wavy marks. The turtles sort of drag through the sand. So keep mixing. Brown, yellow. Some of this pinkish red. And I got it too red again. Some very pigmented colors here. It means the colors are very bright. Let me see if I got the right back. So you can test to see if you're about the same as you were before. Yeah, that'll be good. And I'll just water it down. Okay, we're going to go around again, dropping water on our paper. And you can see where the wax from the crayon is resisting the water. You know, resist the paint. We didn't do too, or I didn't do too much of the waxy crayon, but I might do a little bit more down here. So I don't know if I got it down here or not. So I'm just going to rub it on. You know, I got some over here. Okay. I'm going to keep dropping the water in here. Oh yeah, there we've got some wax resistance right here. A crayon works well, but if you do have wax, that looks even better. If your water's pooling up, just drag it around your paper. Really shiny. Okay, start dropping some color in. Yeah. I'm trying to get around the edge of the turtle there. Okay. I'm not worried about going too much into the turtle's body because it's going to be dark, a dark color. And if you've got a lot of pigment in one section, well, this is actually going to be shadow for him up here. So I'm worried about it being. And you can vary your shadow colors from, these ones are pretty brownish. Maybe the light's hitting a little differently on this guy. Oh, this is still wet. I'm going to drop some more in there. A bit more yellow. Just keep mixing. I'm going to dabble some of this color in here. Just dot it along. Okay, now you'll see down here I get quite a bit of wax. I don't know if you can see those. That's the wax resisting the color in the water. And the sand has sort of a sheen on it from light hitting it. I drop some shadow behind this big turtle here. Just like that. I'm not going right to the edge of the paper. I'm leaving it a little rough. And we pretty much laid down our sand. And that's all there is to it on that one. Yeah. Paper's still a tad wet. You can just add some extra shadowy flavors. And over here, a little bit on this guy. And look at your painting as you go and add to it as you see things that you might want to add. Okay. And we'll leave that like that. And then we'll get into the watery section. I'm going to work on this angle because this section is still pretty wet. So I'm going to work along these lines here. And I will add some more wax to my waves. Okay, just a second here. I'm going to do, I want this to stay pretty wavy. Wavy, I mean light in these areas here. And wax is sort of fun to use because you don't know exactly how it's going to turn out. Maybe a surprise, maybe in these little sections. So for the waves, we've got some turquoise. I think we'll use some turquoise this sort of turquoise, or almost looks like a Aphrodite blue, and or anyways, it's turquoise-ish color. I'm using the, I don't know if I mentioned it in the beginning, but your lid to your paint set can act as your paint palette. There's 3 dividers, so you can mix up different colors in each of these sections. So I'm going to do the turquoise blue, and I'm going to use this dark blue. And then I'll use a combination of both turquoise and dark blue right in here. And we've got light, middle, and dark. So we'll do the lightest part up front here. Clean your brush off. Just want to see which direction I'm going to go. I'm going to go this way. Now, if your sand is wet along the edge here, you might want to wait, because if you get the blue into this color, into the sand color, it might turn a little bit green. And that's okay too. So I'm just going to go ahead and go above the stem line and start working here. So I'm going to drop water down just all over. And if you get splatters on your page of color that you don't want, you can just wipe it up with the brush. And it usually comes right out, especially if it's not dry. You can pick it up. And I'm just going to drop some turquoise everywhere. Okay. And if you do use a crayon or wax and you say, oh my gosh, the color's not going on the paper, just remember you put wax down and the color will not. So if I go over here, try to put color on there, it's not going to go because I have wax along this line. Okay. So I'm going to grab just turquoise. And if your paper is wet, you can just go right into your pigment and drop it in there. See, I put wax there. It's not going to go. She's not going to color the paper. So I'm just using the turquoise for now. And then we'll drop some more color in. And go back here, get some color, or get some water down here. Like so. And the water's down. I'm going to add turquoise to all of this. And you can see where the wax is or is not. Okay, so I'm just going to add a touch more turquoise. All over the water. Looks much lighter on camera than my eyeball. I get lighting here. Did that to me when I was painting the blue crab. So to me, it looks much lighter. I mean, much darker than what it shows on camera. Okay. So then remember how I mixed up the 2 colors, the turquoise and the dark blue? I'm going to do them. And this will be our middle color. So I'm going to add very loose strokes of this mid-tone, if you will, right along here. It's going to go from light to dark. And sort of like so. And you can even drop a little red in there, a light red. It will turn purple though. Let's see. If you drop red into blue, it turns purple. I'm still thinking on this one. I do have a little bit in the painting, so I'll just add a little bit here and there. Let's add some colors to it. A little bit up here. And then we'll go in with our dark blue and get a nice thick puddle of the dark blue. And come right down, like so. Kind of skipping around a little bit. And go along the lines. When the paper's still wet, it will mix with the turquoise and blend. Here's our nice blend. I'll look this up so you can see. Another thing to note is watercolor will start to bubble up a bit. And what you can do is just either, if you have a heat tool, you could dry it off, or you could wait till it dries a bit. It will flatten back out. All watercolor, most all watercolor doesn't matter. I have professional grade watercolor paper that does the same thing. Here's another trick to make some light in your waves or some white. Let me grab a little piece of paper towel. So you can even soak up some of those spots that have a puddle of water. If you accidentally got some puddles, you can take a paper towel and go along like this. And give you some light back into your painting. As long as it's wet, you can pick it up. Pick up some of that color. Once it dries, it's harder to get the paint out without using other techniques. And so I'm going to go ahead and do this. You can see where I've got some wax. It's making some nice texture in the water. I'm just going to add a couple little spots of turquoise in here. And if your sand is dry, what you can do, or your sand line here, I have this little buff, white buff color, I suppose you could call it. And take a, find a clean spot. And take this buff color and like a little spot so it's not too tinted. Clean your brush off. And I'm going to use this buffy white color. It's not quite white, more of a buff color. And I'm going to go just along the front edge of the shoreline here with this buff color, and it will just sort of add a little sheen. You know, it's hard to see along the edge of the shoreline, so it'll make it look like, you know how the water gets clear as it sort of flows into the sand. You can see the sand through it. You can do something like that to achieve that effect. It's subtle, but it's there. And I'm just wiggling my paintbrush back and forth along some of the lines. It's blending that color, that sand color, into the shore. And don't feel like your painting has to be right in front of you all the time. Flip it around, turn it upside down, do all those things to get the angle that you need to see your painting, to paint around edges. The paintings don't have to stay still, or the paper doesn't have to stay still as you're painting. Okay, so we've got this edge there. It's subtle, but it's there. And then what we'll do is move on to the turtles. And I'm not going to use straight black, but I will use black, this black color. And I'm going to mix it with some of the blue, some of the dark blue. And I'll show you what that looks like on this piece of paper. Sort of got a sea green to it. And I'm going to do these turtles, called wet on wet. And I'm just going to wet his body. And my paintbrush is tinted with that color, but that's okay. You can see where I have water laid down that way. You know, this is a fun technique to see happen when you have water on your paper and you drop pigment into it. It's one of my favorite steps, especially if it's dark pigment like this. So you just tap it in, just like this, around the edges of his outline or her outline, and let the color bleed and blend. I'm not really even doing a lot of painting, just tapping and letting the watercolor do what it does and spread around. You can even drag it a little bit. I have a lot of water right here that's puddling up. So what I'm going to do, if you can see that little shiny spot, is soak it up a little bit. So I don't want it that wet. And like I said before, if your paper's still wet, you can move the color around. And you can even do some spots like that. Not fun. And if you wanted it even darker, you can add some more black, some more blue, a little bit thicker. And you can drop a darker value of the same mixture all over and let that spread and blend. You can see where some white is left. That's from the wax, from either my crayon or my wax pencil, my wax stick. It looks pretty cool. So we're going to leave. And if you do get some bleed onto your sand, that's okay. Just take the edge of your brush and just blend it out a little bit. That'll add another little dimension to his shell, to his shadow. And move on this side. Sometimes as you're painting, you work with maybe things you didn't want to happen, and you say, well, I can do something with that. So I did get the paper a little bit wet on the outside of his shell line, and I just used it to make some more shadow. And I add a little bit more, just some straight black right in here. And my tail is deep. There we go. And then I'll do this little guy, same thing. Get him wet. And we'll drop the same mixture into all of the turtles. And that'll be it for this painting. Of course, you can always add more. You can add more layers, deepen up the colors, change the colors, anything you want. I'm going to turn this around. And I'm just tickling those sand lines that I got into the turtle shell or the turtle's body. Make sure I get enough water to do this technique. I'm going to grab some more paint. If your paint is drying, get your paintbrush wet and reactivate it. And then we're going to drop, 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 drop. So you can see these are student grade, if you will, or just very basic watercolor set, and you can do some cool stuff and keep going with it. I'm going to darken up some of the areas back here. Give them some. Yeah, it looks like I lost you guys. I didn't realize that my camera battery had died. So now it's recharged and we will get back to finishing this sea turtle here. And again, I'm showing you how you can paint with just very simple, basic tools to paint a really cute watercolor scene. Nothing fancy. And again, I'm just laying water down on this turtle. I think I've got most all of his body wet. And we'll drop some color in, wet on wet. And I mixed up the black and some of the dark blue to make this shadowy color. And we'll just drop it right in around his shell. And so, like I said, in these kits, you can just play around, have fun, make something super cute. Nothing difficult about this, and nothing real expensive to get you started. Drop some color in here. Let's sort of scrumble around the paper. And let the watercolor do its thing. Kind of blend and bleed and not have enough water over here. And I got a bit of this shadow color outside the lines, and that's okay. I'm going to create just a real light shadow on the outside of this turtle, right there. You can drag some of that color down along the body. It's real wet. You can grab some more dark value to add into this large turtle. So a bit more pigment, less water, get it real thick. And while it's still wet, go ahead and grab some more paint and put it into this larger sea turtle here. And then we'll be almost done. I did add up more, when my camera was off, I did add a little bit more blue um, to my ocean to darken it up. But the purpose of this video is to just show you basically how you lay down one layer of watercolor over these designs to give you a good start. And once you receive this really basic kit, you can add to any of these designs your own version of colors, and add to maybe the beach, add some seashells, or if you wanted to add another little turtle, you could paint one on there. All right. Adding a little bit of darker color around some of these edges. And that, my friends, is a cute start to the family of sea turtles using this watercolor kit. I'm just going to pull some more shadow out around these turtles with just the color that I have on my brush. And with this watercolor paper, sort of your beginner watercolor paper, you just want to be careful you don't scrub on it too much. It's not 100% cotton, so it can't take a lot of, say, what we call scrubbing around. But you could do a little bit here and there. You can see he's got a little shadow under him there. I left some where the watercolor dried and some hard edges. Those are kind of cool. It adds a little bit of a watery look to it. After all, it is watercolor. I've got that line going across there. Very cute. And again, with those wax crayons that I used, you can see where the paint did not get onto the shell or onto the water. That wax acts as a resistant to watercolor. And we're going to call this one done for now. This one here is a family of sea turtles. It's one of 5 designs you would get in the watercolor art kit. If you're interested, the kits are $10 and I ship them to you. Shipping is not included, but you'll get 5 designs and watercolor set and a color wheel to get you started. And like I said, you can paint some really cool stuff with very basic, simple beginner grade watercolors and watercolor brush. And that's about it. I will go ahead and let this dry and set it aside, and maybe look at it a little bit later after all these dry. And if I want to add some more, I'll go ahead and add some more color or some more things to it. But for now, I'll let it set up and let it dry. So I hope you enjoyed this, and go ahead and get your kit ordered while they still last for the summer, and have fun. And we'll talk to you again soon.